The fate of the Donbas region is at a turning point. In peace proposal, the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine is suggested to become a demilitarized zone, DMZ, or a free economic. However, Russia and Ukraine had yet to find common ground. After weeks of tense negotiations with the U.S. delegation, President Zelensky revealed a shocking detail: the possibility of withdrawing Ukraine to establish a free economic zone or a demilitarized zone. Consider the nuance in this terminology. Zelensky stated that while Ukraine opposes a purely military withdrawal, U.S. negotiators are trying to soften the issue by calling it an economic zone. According to this proposal, if Ukraine withdraws heavy forces from 5 to 40 kilometers on the Donetsk territory they still control, Russia must take similar action. Ukraine's goal is clear: they want to retain administrative and police sovereignty here, while inviting international forces to be present along the contact line to prevent Russia's return. Free economic zone. Creating profitable investment opportunities for American business, thereby making the U.S. a stakeholder in protecting this area. However, there is a significant difference in definition between the parties. According to experts, establishing a demilitarized zone is an extremely the weak U.S. scenario shows the idea of turning the Donetsk industrial zone into a demilitarized, where Ukrainian troops withdraw and the area could be internationally recognized. Ukraine calls this the height of injustice because Russia is not required to withdraw troops correspondingly. Meanwhile, Ukraine's scenario is to establish a free economic zone to retain investments in heavy industry, maintaining legal sovereignty even without troops stationed on site. Russia still insists that Ukraine must completely withdraw from Donbas as a prerequisite for any agreement. President Putin even declared he would use military force to control the entire region if Kiev does not voluntarily leave. Moscow views the presence of any peacekeeping forces from Europe as a threat. Many are looking at the 1953 Korean DMZ model, or the Sinai Peninsula in the Egypt-Israel conflict for an exit, but reality is much harsher. In Korea, peace is maintained by the direct presence of U.S. troops on the ground, which the Trump administration stated it would not do in Ukraine. In Sinai, Israel accepted giving up territorial expansion in exchange, but in Donbas, Russia has no intention of giving up. On the contrary, Moscow rejects any option that does not include international recognition of the territories they control. Zelensky emphasized one point: any peace plan, including establishing a special zone in Donbas or jointly operating the Zaporizhia nuclear power, must move through a nationwide referendum. This is a move that both defends and opens. It allows Ukraine to uphold its stance on the 1991 borders legally, while opening the door to negotiations on short-term foreign control. If the people do not agree to territorial concessions, Zelensky will have constitutional grounds to reject excessive demand. Analysts believe that a demilitarized zone or economic zone can only become a reality when both sides value the benefits of peace over continuing the fight. Currently, Russia believes it holds the advantage due to steady military progress, despite paying a high. Meanwhile, Ukraine and Europe fear that territorial concessions now will only be a prelude to another invasion in the future. Donbas stands at the boundary between a future prosperous economic zone or a cold, divided buffer region. The final outcome may not depend on the technical details of the DMZ, but on whether the U.S. has enough weight to pressure both sides into concessions. Kyiv's command is said to want to counterattack in Pokrovsk to achieve at least some success in the city, and prevent defeat in Dnipro while breaking the advance of Russian forces. 1. Enter the Dnipro region. 2. For this purpose, on November 3, the Ukrainian military mobilized 9 battalions from 5 brigades. 4. In the Polkron direction, AFU reserves are concentrated in it. 5. From there, launch breakthrough attacks into Polkron. 6. From the eastern suburbs of Rusino, the AFU is reducing its. 7. To carry out counterattacks with attack groups of 3. 8. Towards the Polkron industrial zone and towards the western railway crossing. 9. At the intersection, the crews of Ukraine's heavy UAV 33. 10. Were deployed to isolate the combat. 11. The attacking force clearly hopes to counterattack. 12. From Sezika to Kalino Pudani to strike the flank from the west. 13. And from Rusino to the railway junction, in the direction of Rodinko to break through from the north. 14. Whether they will succeed or not. 15. Currently, Moscow units have occupied key defensive positions. 16. And protecting them from enemy attacks becomes much easier. 17. While the AFU is losing both manpower. 18. In the Drogopilia direction, Moscow forces continue to advance. 19. And achieves new progress in 3 different areas. 20. RFAF consolidates positions in the remaining rows of trees along the railway. 21. And began breakthrough attacks to the north aimed at outflanking the Polkrot coal mine. 22. A place recently reached. 23. They advanced northward along the western edge. 24. While other units consolidated their positions in the densely forested. 25. Previously, within the 24-hour period. 26. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has entered a phase of escalating. 27. With brutal retaliation. 28. Meanwhile, a record-scale UAV raid started directly at. 29. In reality, the Russian military is delivering. 30. Gnawing away at every square kilometer of territory. 31. Is Ukraine's drone defense tactics still strong enough to hold up? 32. In the face of the massive. 33. December 24th was an overloaded workday for Russian air. 34. The Russian Ministry of Defense announced that it had intercepted into. 35. Of Ukraine across all. 36. Most notably, the capital Askava has become the target at. 37. Although Mayor Sergei Sobyanin claimed the targets had been shot at. 38. Ukraine's ability to deploy a large number of UAVs at close. 39. Russia's power center shows an effort to penetrate. 40. 41. However, the most severe damage was in Toul. 42. The Ukrainian General Staff announced the destruction of a synthetic rubber plant here. 43. This is not merely an 44. But is an important supply source providing polymer and rubber for military vehicle. And 45. The large explosions and fires that erupted in Tula are key. 46. They are capable of striking at Russia's financial resources. And 47. In contrast to Ukraine's long-range. 48. On the ground, Russia is holding the initiative. 49. Data from the DIS project, a source with close ties to the Ukrainian military. 50. Painted a bleak picture for the defensive force. In the past 24 hours, Russia has captured over 18.8 square kilometers of territory. In Sumy, the area under Russian control increased by. In Kharkiv, Russia continued to expand its control area in the Zhuhai district. In Donetsk, Russia captured Monarod, an area larger than 4 square kilometers. This move directly threatens Avdiivka. In 2025, Russia has been capturing an average of about 250.
The White House even issued a grim warning that Ukraine
risks losing an additional 22% of the remaining area, including legendary fortresses like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. Ukraine is overly reliant on drones to compensate for infantry shortages. Russia's tactics have significantly improved. They no longer launch massive attacks with easily detectable heavy equipment, but use small groups of soldiers to bypass drone surveillance networks. Even in Kupiansk, Russian forces exploited underground gas pipelines, a surprising and bold tactic. Although Ukraine has attempted counterattacks and repelled some incursions. In Drogopilia or Zaporizhia, the defensive gaps are very clear.
drones can eliminate enemies
From a distance of 16 kilometers. But they cannot hold fortifications or replace soldiers, exhausted from continuous fighting. As Russian forces advance, they simultaneously conduct a campaign to push Ukraine. In Kharkiv, Russia continuously strikes heating and water supply infrastructure.
Its goal is clear: destroy Ukraine. Using winter, cold, and darkness to break the people's will to resist.
Finally, casualties continue to rise unabated, with figures from both sides at horrifying levels. Russia claims Ukraine lost 1,420 soldiers, while Ukraine estimates total Russian losses have exceeded 1.2 million. Although the actual numbers may differ,
they reflect the brutal nature of a war of attrition, where
the side that perseveres to the end is the victor.
Like the journey? Subscribe and join the next expedition.